Live from downtown Detroit, Local 4 News at 5 starts now.
Stuck in the mud, crews race to free a worker who could not move his legs. Ben?
Devin, a nasty winter storm in the plains is going to drag its tail through Metro Detroit. So are we going to get a repeat of last week's winter wallop?
And breaking news from the MSU campus in East Lansing, where police are trying to maintain control outside an event involving a white nationalist speaker. Thanks for being with us for the news at 5. It is the very sort of violence MSU is trying to avoid by scheduling Richard Spencer's visit during spring break. There
have been fights. We know of at least one arrest so far. We bring in Priya Mann, who's live in East Lansing with whether things have calmed down here a bit as we hit the 5 o'clock hour. Priya?
Devin, things have calmed down a little bit, but that's due in part to this massive police presence. Just take a look, dozens of state police vehicles here. Now, for much of the day, the protests were peaceful. They were carrying signs, they were chanting, but it was peaceful. And then as supporters started showing up, that's when violence erupted. A number of people arrested, a number of fights breaking out ahead of Richard Spencer's speech, which is taking place right now. Protests erupted at MSU moments before Richard Spencer's event began on campus Monday afternoon. Some tried preventing Spencer supporters from getting inside the building. That's where heavily armed police officers stepped in, trying to separate the crowd. Several people were arrested, while many others recorded the melee on their phones. Spencer is the head of the National Policy Institute. It describes itself as being dedicated to the heritage, identity, and future of people of European descent in the U.S. and around the world. He spoke with Local 4 and defended his right to free speech.
When I say something as simple as it's okay to be white, that strikes a chord. It becomes wildly controversial. So this is the reaction that is incited does reveal to us the truthfulness and power of what I'm saying.
So their movement is really scapegoating the problems that people are facing. They're saying, you know what, why you're unhappy? It's because of immigrants. They're saying, you know why you're unhappy? It's because women have more power, right? So this is all part of this fascist message that he's putting forward.
8 months ago, MSU denied Spencer's request to speak on campus, so he sued in federal court, trying to minimize the risk of violence. MSU allowed him to speak during spring break in the Agriculture and Livestock building.
I am here to engage with the community, with students, with faculty, with anyone who wants to engage with me in a good faith conversation. Sometimes the truth hurts, and but it doesn't make it less truthful. I cannot stop speaking the truth, because it might offend someone.
And you can see protesters standing in the back there behind state police. You have a number of students here, community groups, activists, grassroots activist groups, and also some members of the Antifa movement. Now, there's also a heavy police presence here, as you saw, trying to quell any potential violence like we just saw a few moments ago. You have MSP, East Lansing, Meridian Township, Ingham County, Clinton County, and MSU police also on scene here right now. And of course, there is a huge controversy here right now. When I was speaking to Richard Spencer, he says he does not describe himself as a Nazi. He says he's motivated by love for his people. Of course, protesters here have a very different view of the speech that's being made here on campus tonight. Reporting live from East Lansing, I'm Priya Mann, Local 4.
Well, Priya, let's look ahead then to tonight. I guess a limited number of people are going to be allowed inside the event where the speech is to take place.
Yeah, that's right. This event was ticketed and it was organized by Spencer's group, the National Policy Institute. It was not organized in any way by MSU. MSU saying they are only providing the venue here. So people had to get tickets, and there was a slight vetting process as well. And again, some media outlets also reporting they were denied access inside the speech. So again, that speech taking place, supporters entering the building starting at 4:30. Spencer's expected to be here until 6:30 tonight, and Local 4 will be here monitoring the situation as well to make sure we will bring you the latest if any fights do break out or any violence erupts. State police, a lot of police presence here. We will stay here as well. Send it back to you.
Yeah. All right, Priya. Meanwhile, as we move south of East Lansing, a supporter of Richard Spencer faces charges after he allegedly pulled a gun out during a dispute between protesters and supporters. This happened around 7:30 on Washtenaw Avenue near Carpenter Road in Ann Arbor. 24-year-old Jonathan Kolanowski charged with carrying a concealed weapon, though no injuries were reported. Kolanowski was arraigned today and given a $3,000 bond.
All right, shifting gears to the weather now. A whole lot of snow melted across Metro Detroit. I was glad to see it because it was really weighing down my azalea trees in the backyard. I was worried about those. And now you're saying more snow is on the way.
More is coming, but nothing compared to what we saw last week. It's just going to be a little frosting on the cake. Okay. Because some of that, or I should say a good portion of that snow is still left out there depending on where you're at. But this is our snow maker. And you see it is making snow out here to the west right now. Most of this, as far as the accumulation goes, is going to stay on the other side of the lake. But there's that tail that's going to be wagging itself through here as we get through the nighttime hours really early tomorrow and then through the day on Tuesday. As far as what we can expect, again, this is pretty paltry stuff. Most of us are going to pick up less than an inch, but right around an inch, or at least towards Romulus, where we'll make our official measurement there a little bit later on. That is through Tuesday night. There is more snow on the way as we get later into the week, and we'll discuss that coming up. But temperatures down below freezing by midnight, so it is going to be a chilly start tomorrow morning, and we'll talk more about that. And of course, your 4-zone forecast all coming up in just a few minutes, guys.
We've been following a rescue in Brandon Township this afternoon after a man became stuck in the mud there. Jason Colthorpe here now with the latest. Jason.
And Devin, I just got off the phone with Brandon Township Fire Department. All of these firefighters still out there cleaning up from this, but I did talk to some police sources who have heard from the start that the man is okay. They're saying he simply got stuck in the knee-high mud, but as you're seeing, you see why it was such an undertaking. This is a look from Sky 4 earlier, all this beginning around 1 o'clock this afternoon on Hadley Road when this electrical worker got stuck in the mud. The mud was so thick the rescue took 2 hours or so as they had to be very careful to free him without hurting him. And then he was eventually taken to the hospital. There's no indication this was any sort of trench collapse or anything like that, just mud. And again, guys, police are hearing he's okay, but we'll update you as soon as we get official word on the situation from the fire department.
Okay, Jason, we'll talk to you at 5:30. Thank you. An arraignment has been delayed for the teenager who allegedly shot his 2 parents at Central Michigan University last week. Police say 19-year-old James Eric Davis Jr. was acting strange leading up to the deadly shooting of his parents. Davis remains in the hospital in police custody. He was expected to be arraigned at some point earlier today, but it was delayed for unknown reasons. 2 Detroit police officers are out of jail on a personal bond tonight. They're awaiting trial for allegedly neglecting their duty in a fatal high-speed chase late last year. Local 4's Rod Maloney is here with the story of how they eluded our cameras today for their arraignment. Rod?
Well, Kimberly, you know that arraignments are usually arranged in advance. They're quick in and out types of things. We go when the prosecutor's office says that's where this is going to happen. But today that was not the case. We ended up going into this arraignment, but the 2 officers somehow got into the building and had their case moved up to a 4th floor judge. When we were on the 1st floor, they got in and out without being seen or having their pictures taken. This was the scene last October. 19-year-old Jerry Bradford Jr., whom officers started chasing with overhead lights on, blew a stop sign and wound up T-boned and hit this tree at the intersection of Maiden Street and Park Drive. He later died in the hospital. Police Chief James Craig then suspended officers Stephen Hyde and Ronald Cadez without pay for giving chase and then not assisting with the fatal crash.
There was no contact made with zone dispatch advising them that they had initiated or that they were following a vehicle at a high rate of speed.
The officers are charged with willful neglect of duty, which is a criminal misdemeanor. Therefore, they weren't arrested or held in jail prior to their scheduled 36th district arraignment today in criminal arraignment court. So instead of going before a magistrate, as we'd been told to expect, they went directly to the pretrial misdemeanor judge. She gave the officers a $5,000 personal recognizance bond, and they left the courthouse without their pictures taken. So the officers are due back in court on March 25th for a pre-trial hearing. That is, of course, unless they don't plead it out before then. They are represented by Detroit Police Union attorneys. Back to you.
So, Rod, just kind of remind us about the circumstances around what actually started this chase.
Yes, these officers were special operations officers, young officers, 26, 28 years old. Apparently they saw something that they didn't like and they took off, and we're told that they were going about 75 miles per hour chasing this car down the street, which is against police policy now in the city of Detroit, as chases like this have become highly controversial within the city. And so the police didn't have anything new to say about this case, so we'll have to see where this goes on the 25th.
Okay, we know you'll keep us posted, Rod. Thank you.
Some 2,000 workers at Ford's sprawling assembly and stamping plants in Wayne are being told they will face an approximate 5-month layoff this year. Layoffs affect the Michigan assembly and stamping plants in Wayne. They will last from May until October to allow Ford to retool for production of the Ranger small pickup and the Bronco sport utility vehicle. Laid off workers will receive approximately 75% of their take-home pay while they're on layoff.
A bomb threat this morning caused the evacuation of Ypsilanti Community Middle School. Students and staff were taken on buses to the high school, where parents were told to pick them up. The middle school remained closed for the rest of the day. Meanwhile, the Washtenaw County Sheriff's Department is still investigating. Trouble involving some high chairs sold at Walmart. They're being recalled after at least 5 children ended up with bumps and bruises.
Coming up, and here's Nick.
A fire in Harrison Township destroys this 100-plus-year-old farmhouse. But it's not just the home that's destroyed, it's memories and wedding plans.
All right, Nick, also a security camera rolls as thieves ram their way into a liquor store to take what they please. Also, quick reminder as we head to break. Tomorrow night, 7 p.m., Detroit Mayor Duggan will deliver his State of the City address. And we hope you'll join us right here on Local 4 to watch it. We'll carry it live. We'll also live stream it on clickondetroit.com, or you can watch it through the Click on Detroit app. We'll be right back.
It's new at 6.
A local man tells me his father was allegedly abused inside this nursing home. I'm Larry Sproul, and I'll tell you the actions that he took to get that abuse caught on camera.
The first male gymnast to come forward and accuse Larry Nasser of abuse, he spoke today and told everyone about why he wants his name out there.
I don't want them to be, scared to come out because of, this stigma that, guys can't be, sexually abused.
We'll tell you what's next for Jacob and for this case.
Jamie, that's coming up at 6. Now back here at 5, Detroit police are looking for a band of thieves that used a couple of cars in a liquor store heist. One of them sustained damage that might help aid in their capture. Rod Maloney has the story.
Well, the repair crews are out trying to get the door fixed here at A's Liquor. But it was the pictures of what exactly brought this on that are amazing. Video security cameras rolled at 3 a.m. an hour after A's Liquor on Grand River closed. We see 5 men in hoodies pull up, back a black Dodge Avenger, not once but twice, into the heavy steel front door protecting the place. And here's what that scene looked like from the inside. When the car pulled out, the gang went to work looting the place. They took trash cans and a side door to get behind the counter, started taking liquor, Patron tequila, Hennessy cognac. They also got away with a couple of cash registers that they didn't know didn't have any cash in them. They smashed open an ATM and stole that cash. Store manager Cesar Isa got a security call and watched it all in horror.
We got on our cameras at home, and it showed a car reversing into my slide door twice, and 5, 6 guys running in and trying to ransack the place.
They knew they didn't have much time, so they worked quickly helping themselves and rolling a grocery cart full of bottles as if this were the grocery game. 4 of the 5 disguised their faces, but 1 did not, and police now have a very good look at one of the suspects with this still frame.
Thankfully, they didn't get away with too much, but I would have rather gave that away to save me the damage. It cost me about $10,000–15,000 in damage.
Isa tells Local 4 they've been hit before, and Detroit police have always caught the thieves, so they're pretty much certain that they'll get these guys as well. And it's obvious that a big, heavy steel door is not enough, so they're going to be increasing the security at this shop. Might change the way they do a little bit of their business, but they said they have no choice. In Detroit, Rod Maloney, Local 4.
All right, Rod, let's again check in on our top story here at 5 o'clock, and that is a bit of tension at the campus of Michigan State up in East Lansing. We've got Richard Spencer, the white supremacist scheduled to speak this evening at the university, and both supporters of his and opponents of his have been clashing outside where that speech is to be taking place this evening. We've had a couple of arrests, some bottles rather have been thrown, some rocks, punches. So right now, according to our Priya man, things have calmed down a bit since about 4 o'clock when things first started to heat up. But Sky 4 in the area overhead, and we will keep an eye on a pretty tense situation at the moment.
Meanwhile, if you filled up your tank recently, you probably noticed the prices have gone up again. The statewide average for a gallon of gasoline is about $2.53. That's about 3 cents higher than last week. Here in Metro Detroit, we're paying about $2.51 per gallon, which is up about 6 cents. The least expensive gasoline in the state is in Flint, where gas is about $2.50 a gallon.
Well, we've just about melted away the last little bad joke snow, and we're about to get another bad joke snow.
Here comes Ben with some more news.
It's like a prank.
Well, sort of, but this one's just not as ridiculous as the last one.
Sure, that's fine.
To continue that metaphor, but just a little bit on top of what we got out there already. So let's take a look at current temperatures. Haven't been too bad, pretty close to average for this time of year. Cloudy 36, and those higher clouds are going to get lower and thicker tonight as that next round of snow moves in. Pressure relatively on the high side, 30-15, but we'll be getting lower as that snow approaches. Did see some sunshine today, although it was filtered beneath, or I should say above, those high clouds. And when we see those cirrus clouds, those are made of ice crystals, and sometimes we can get this halo effect around the sun. And we got one of those on storm pins today. That was at Brownstown Township, sent in earlier today. So appreciate that shot. And the clouds will get thicker again tonight ahead of this system. And you can see there's plenty of snow out there. Good moisture feed moving into the northern plain states. But it's not just the snow that's causing the problem. That red shaded area, that's a blizzard warning. They're expecting 5 to 10 inches of snow, which is a decent amount. But it's the wind speeds of up to 65 miles per hour that are going to cause the big problems there. That's over severe storm strength. So definitely could be some damage out of that. We'll skip out on the wind part and the higher amounts of the snow, but by the time this thing gets here, you can see it just sort of wrapping its tail into the southern part of the state. About 5 a.m. or so, we'll start seeing those snow showers fall in our south zone. That is going to spread across the entire area, so do look for that morning commute to be snow-filled. Tomorrow we get a little bit of a midday break, and then late afternoon into the evening, another push of precipitation, but that could be a mix before we get into the overnight. Also, a little bit of another burst of snow that's going to be coming in here on the east side as we get into Wednesday morning. It still could be some snow showers around on Thursday. However, none of this looks really impressive. We're talking an inch here on Tuesday night, maybe another one with that early Wednesday snowstorm, or I should say line of snow, and then Thursday some very minor accumulations possible. High temperatures tomorrow, upper 30s, so in the metro zone for the most part we're looking at snow, but our south zone where those highs get into the low 40s tomorrow, that's where we could see a little bit of a mix in the second half of the day after that morning snow. West zone, temperatures do get colder for highs as you get into Genesee County, mid 30s there, but still can see a little bit of a mix down here in the afternoon with those upper 30s around Ann Arbor, and it's all going to be snow tomorrow. High temperatures just a little bit above freezing in our north zone. Overnight lows going down to 30 degrees, and yes, this is mostly going to be snow tomorrow. If we do see a mix, it's going to be in the second half of the day and most likely in the evening. After those shots of snow Wednesday, Thursday, we dry out, and look at that. Setting the clocks forward on Sunday. Daylight saving time.
That's right.
Starting this week.
It feels good when that happens. Yeah.
Losing an hour, but whatever.
Exactly. It just feels better. We have seen a lot of students arrested and now facing serious charges for making threats against their schools. This time, it was a bus driver. We've got that coming up at 5:30.
Plus dramatic footage from outside a burning building in New York City as a large chunk of it comes crashing down on firefighters. Next.
It's a video game that claims to make you or your kids smarter. I'm Dr. Frank McGeorge. Tomorrow at 5, see what makes this game so different from other learning games and the surprising partnership that helped make it available to the public.
4 New York firefighters were injured this morning after a 20-foot section of a burning roof fell onto them. Officials say the fire broke out after midnight in one home before spreading to 2 neighboring houses. You're seeing video here from the scene. 2 of the firefighters hit by the debris were treated at the scene, while 2 others were taken to the hospital with minor injuries. The cause, though, is still under investigation.
Across Michigan today, a survey reveals that a majority of Michigan voters would approve a ballot proposal to legalize marijuana. 61% of voters say they would vote yes. Just 35% say they would vote no. The coalition to regulate marijuana like alcohol turned in signatures to state election officials last year to put a ballot proposal for a statewide vote in 2018. The proposal would make Michigan the 9th state to legalize marijuana for recreational use by a statewide vote. A man faces up to 10 years in prison after leading police on a 100-mile-an-hour chase through Midland. Police say 39-year-old Travis Sherwood led them on a 14-mile chase that hit very dangerous speeds last year. A deputy was trying to pull the man over for having an improper license plate. When he took off down US 10, Sherwood eventually stopped and fled on foot before being taken into custody. He was sentenced for 2 separate counts of operating under the influence and 1 count of third-degree fleeing and eluding.
More than 36,000 high chairs have been recalled after several reports of injuries to children. The recall involves Graco table-to-table 6-in-1 high chairs with model number 1969721. The cushion is white with gold and gray polka dots. These high chairs are sold exclusively at Walmart. 38 reports were received about the rear leg pivoting out of position, including 5 injuries to children who fell out of the high chair while they were in it. Those who purchase the chairs should stop using it immediately and contact Graco for a free repair kit.
New at 5:30.
A moment, decades in the making. A U.S. aircraft carrier docking in Vietnam for the first time since the war. Why the Pentagon chose now as the time to do it.
President Trump today is standing his ground on his controversial tariffs on steel and aluminum, and Special Counsel Robert Mueller seems to be upping the pressure on the Russia investigation.
Firefighters going to extraordinary lengths here in Harrison Township trying to save this home. They couldn't do that, but then it's what they found inside, what they were able to save inside, that matters much more to the family.
On the next level.
Losing almost everything. An old home in Macomb County goes up in flames, but firefighters were able to recover 1 priceless item from inside. Imagine suddenly having no place to live, no clothes to wear, and nothing to call your own.
That is the sad reality. Early Sunday morning, a fire ripped through an historic Harrison Township home on Jeffers Court. And as Nick Monticelli reports tonight, their home isn't all they lost.
Whenever something like this happens, many people say it's just things. They can be replaced. That's true, but this is a home. This is a place where memories are made. It's the future. It's also where their wedding was going to be, right here, in just 4 months.
This was a main bedroom with a bath.
Keith Pelkey is still essentially in a state of shock, looking at his 109-year-old dream farm home on Lake St. Clair, and he knows it's no longer a home. Sunday morning, Dawn, his fiance, got up early, and the lights in the bathroom wouldn't turn on.
I immediately jumped up, ran in, and I could hear crackling in the ceiling. I put my hand up and touched the ceiling, and immediately I knew something was wrong. It was hot.
It was the fire taking over the attic.
10 minutes later, you're standing here and you're looking at everything you've ever owned in flames with 40-foot flames coming out of the ceiling, and I just don't know what to do. We're lost.
It was horrifying. It was scary. It was tragic.
A chimney's still there.
The chimney's still there, yeah.
Yeah.
To make matters worse, Keith and Dawn are fighting for custody of their 4-year-old granddaughter, Aurora. Their money goes to those legal fees, so this injured and retired auto worker couldn't afford renter's insurance.
Put a bullet in my leg, it'd probably be easier. I don't know where to go from here.
And not only have Keith, Dawn, and their kids lost everything, they also lost future wedding plans. The couple was going to get married in their backyard in July. Fortunately, a Harrison Township fire investigator was at least able to save her dress.
Everything that they did to try to help us so that we can try to have any kind of memories left from our home. Sorry.
In Harrison Township, Nick Monticelli, Local 4.
Switching gears now, we're following a tense situation at Michigan State University this evening. 2 groups of protesters clashing outside a speech by white nationalist Richard Spencer. Priya Mann is there live with the very latest. Priya, what do you see? Priya, can you hear us?
Yes, we can. Sorry, it is very loud here, and every time that some of Spencer's supporters come in, the protesters, they start running toward them, yelling at them, saying Nazis go home. It has been a very tense couple of hours here. For most of the day, I want to say the protests were peaceful, and then as supporters started coming in closer to 4:30, that's when you started to see violence erupt. We saw a number of people arrested. Every time the supporters come, they are guarded by police who then walk them into that building, and many of them I've seen are smiling, even waving at protesters, which only further exacerbates the situation out here. These protesters then start lunging toward them. A very heavy police presence here. You can see a lot of state police as well as other departments here. Protesters say they want their voices heard and that Richard Spencer should never have been allowed to speak at MSU. Take a listen to what some of them are saying.
Bring his brand that is causing all this disturbance is just unacceptable, and I think he should be banned from speaking.
I am here to engage with the community, with students, with faculty, with anyone who wants to engage with me in a good faith conversation.
And that was Richard Spencer you just heard. Now, he says that he wants to engage with people, but this event was ticketed and there was a vetting process as well to get in. Now, I would say that the crowds here have swelled from about 200 for most of the day to maybe about 700-800 people. The crowd just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And again, every time supporters walk in, that's when this crowd starts chanting, starts lunging toward them. We are here live in East Lansing, continuing to monitor this situation as it unfolds. At this time, Richard Spencer is right now speaking inside that agricultural building. Reporting live from East Lansing, I'm Priya Mann, Local 4.
And I think what a lot of people don't realize, Priya, is that area at Michigan State, the pavilion as it's known, is very big. It's where they have lots of livestock shows. And I think the idea was to have it in that area where it just would be away from campus, and yet now it's kind of having the reverse effect. So many people are able to congregate there and there's a lot of space. But Priya, have you seen anyone else get arrested other than the two we saw taken down earlier?
Yeah, we've seen a few more people get arrested, especially when those supporters show up. Then you see protesters lunging at them. They're trying to jump over the fence, and that's when you see arrested. And you're right, they did decide to bring it into this building on the south end of campus during spring break to hopefully minimize any potential violence towards students or police. And sorry, we just got to keep moving as police are trying to form a line. But again, you know, the situation unfolding rather volatile here right now. There's a lot of camera crews here, a lot of police presence as well. And again, every time protesters spot a Richard Spencer supporter, that's when things get out of control here. But police doing their best to minimize the violence, also arresting anybody who's jumping that perimeter trying to get to these supporters. I'll send it back to you.
All right, we know this is a breaking situation. We'll let you stay there. We'll check back with you later. It's also important to note as well that Michigan State was not able to deny that application for this because legal action was threatened at the same time. So they decided to choose the state.
In other news today, President Trump standing his ground on his controversial plan to impose tariffs on imported steel and aluminum. This is NBC News reports Special Counsel Robert Mueller appears to be upping the pressure in the Russia investigation. Blaine Alexander has it all covered for us from Capitol Hill.
Well, hello to you from Washington. For days now, we have heard other world leaders and even other Republicans say these tariffs are a bad idea. Well, today, President Trump was clear he is not changing his mind.
We've had a very bad deal with Mexico.
President Trump digging in his heels.
No, we're not backing down.
Defiant on his plan to impose tariffs on imported steel and aluminum, despite criticism from around the world and concerns at home.
How will consumers absorb a $3.5 billion tax in the auto retail sector? And that's a real concern for us.
House Speaker Paul Ryan and other Republicans urging the president to change his mind. Over the weekend, even his own Commerce Secretary, one of the plan's biggest supporters, seeming uncertain about its future.
If he says something different, it'll be something different.
But the president going a step further, tying the planned tariffs to NAFTA, the trade agreement with Canada and Mexico that his administration is trying to renegotiate.
That would be, I would imagine, one of the points that we'll negotiate. It will be tariffs on steel for Canada and for Mexico.
President Trump today alongside Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, both appearing upbeat but facing high-stakes investigations. Netanyahu questioned about possible corruption back home. President Trump facing what could be a new turn in the Russia investigation. Special counsel Robert Mueller sending a grand jury subpoena for documents about the president and some of his closest campaign advisors dating back to November 2015. Today, former Trump aide Sam Nunberg defiantly telling NBC News he will not comply.
I'm not going to produce them every email I had with Steve Bannon and Roger Stone from November 1 of 2015. What do I have to produce them, all my communication?
Echoing President Trump, calling the investigation a witch hunt.
And according to that subpoena, investigators want to get phone logs, emails, and text messages, all dating back to 4 months after the president launched his campaign, a possible window into what he knew and when. In Washington, Blaine Alexander, Local 4.
A school bus driver in North Carolina faces charges tonight after police say she threatened to shoot up a middle school. 32-year-old LaShawna Hooker Beecham allegedly posted the threat in a Facebook group using a fake account. Police say she despairingly mentioned several school employees before threatening to shoot up Porter Ridge Middle School. Some parents are relieved she's no longer behind the wheel or with the school.
It just blew our mind. What if my kids were on the bus and she got angry, not knowing when you'll see them again, or that they'll be okay? It's very scary.
Beecham was only employed with the school for less than 2 months. She now faces 2 felony charges. Police are still working to find a motive in the case.
Police in Western Canada are on the hunt for a thief who's stealing gas from other cars. The suspect, armed with an electric drill, has successfully stolen gas from at least 18 vehicles now. Watch him here. He just simply lays down, drills a hole in the car next to his, lets the gas tank drip into a jug. He then takes the jug and pours it in his tank. Authorities are saying the cost of gas is nothing compared to the cost to fix the damage done to these cars.
An historic moment today between the U.S. and a former enemy.
Yeah, Devin's here with a look at why the docking of an American ship is making headlines today.
Yeah, fascinating moment. The nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, the USS Carl Vinson, arrived in Vietnam today, marking the first time such a ship has docked in the country since the Vietnam War. The arrival of the USS Carl Vinson today marks the first U.S. aircraft carrier to visit Vietnam since the end of the Vietnam War. Da Nang was also a major staging point for the American effort back then, so this holds a lot of symbolism, a sign of growing security ties between Washington and Hanoi.
The United States and Vietnam share a range of interests, including a desire to maintain peace, prosperity, unimpeded commerce, freedom of navigation, upon which the region and its economies depend.
It's also a strong signal to China, which is currently building its military in the South China Sea. Just today, China announced it'll increase defense spending by another 8%, and that makes countries in the region, like Vietnam, rather nervous. The U.S. presence is part of a Pentagon strategy to blunt that influence of China. Commanders here said the U.S. is not looking to make trouble with China. The U.S. has no planes in the South China Sea, but it's a matter of freedom of navigation and preserving international law. USS Carl Vinson, 1,092 feet long. It carries about 5,300 personnel on board, along with more than 70 aircraft. It's escorted through the South China Sea by 2 destroyers and a guided missile cruiser as well.
Yeah, and it was also the one where Michigan State played North Carolina, I believe, on the Carl Vinson.
I didn't realize that.
I remember correctly. It just came to me.
Thanks,
The complaint department is open, so let me ask you, Michiganders, what's grinding your gears? We're going to find out.
Also, the doc is here.
Well, you know, there's a significant change in how doctors treat patients with type 2 diabetes. Coming up, see why new guidelines are loosening a target number and what that could mean for millions of people.
He's known for his...
New at 6.
A woman already in trouble with the law gets new charges tacked on after appearing in court. We'll tell you what happened inside that courtroom that only added to her legal troubles.
Plus, it's a sometimes forgotten frontier in the battle against the opioid epidemic, how innocent children are being harmed.
In good health tonight, millions of people are on medications to control their blood sugar because of type 2 diabetes.
But some new guidelines are changing the targets of treatment, suggesting people may not need as much medication as before. Dr. McGeorge is here to explain exactly why.
Well, Karen and Jason, you know, people with type 2 diabetes should be familiar with the blood test called the hemoglobin A1C level. Basically, it gauges a person's average blood sugar over the previous 2 or 3 months. Well, today, the American College of Physicians loosened the recommended A1C goal, making control easier and safer for millions.
Keeping your blood sugar under control is crucial to prevent complications of diabetes like stroke, heart disease, or kidney and nerve damage. Generally, it was felt that keeping sugars as close to normal was best, but a new evaluation of existing information shows that may not be true, particularly when A1C levels are being targeted.
Treatment with drugs targeted to 7%, in contrast to 8%, does not prevent heart attacks or strokes, but it does result in substantial harm, including low blood sugar, increased medication burden, and increased cost.
Prior recommendations were to keep A1C levels as low as 6.5% to 7%, using 1 or more medications when necessary. The new goal is higher, between 7% to 8%, meaning a person would need less medication and their blood sugars would be less tightly controlled.
Studies do not show benefit treating to an A1C level below 6.5, but they do show harms.
The group recommends that people with A1C levels below 6.5 should talk with their doctors about reducing or discontinuing their medication. And ideally, people with type 2 diabetes should have the goal of controlling their blood sugar with diet, exercise, and weight loss.
So I want to be clear, this only applies to people with type 2 diabetes, not type 1 diabetics on insulin. Finally, one other recommendation in the paper was to avoid targeting A1C levels in people that have a life expectancy under 10 years due to age or some other chronic conditions, because basically the harms of overtreatment outweigh the benefit. Back to you.
All right, Doc, thanks. Attorney General Bill Schuette marked the 20th annual National Consumer Protection Week today by releasing the 2017 list of top 10 consumer complaints in Michigan.
Oh, more than 10,000 complaints were filed last year, topping the list at number 1. Credit and financial concerns, generating 1,788 complaints. It has been the number 1 complaint since 2006. Coming in at number 2 is personal service providers with 1,047 complaints. Telecommunications, cable, and satellite TV rings in at number 3. They've got about 900 complaints. Number 4, motor vehicle and automobiles. Internet remains in the 5th spot with more than 740 complaining about service.
Coming in at number 6 is retail. Moving up the list at number 7, contractors. Number 8 with more than 400 complaints is landlords and tenants. Also with more than 400 complaints is health service providers, and coming in at number 9. And last but certainly not least, gasoline, fuel, and energy complaints.